Hey, what is going on, everyone? Major G here. Um, so, now that I've finally finished the ACT, and I don't have to worry about that anymore, I did want to do a little bit of and I'm actually caught up on pretty much all the CW DC stuff. The only one I'm not quite yet is Black Lightning. I have a couple more episodes to catch up on that. But so yeah, let's do a little bit of a recap as to what's going on. So I'm just going to say this about last season's Supergirl real quick. I was a bit abrasive with the Legion as they entered Supergirl because they're quite different from what I know as the Legion. So they such as Saturn Girl being being telekinetic rather than a telepath, which she is in the comics. But that's probably because you already have John Jones, who's a telepath. And that actually gets pretty criminally underused in the series. But they've started doing that more recently now. Of course, with the whole Me Too feminism thing, they're very, very much focusing on consent. So, I mean, that there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. And that is something that does come up when you're talking about John Jones and Miss Martian, Megan. And so I did initially kind of have an issue with Brainiac 5, who is one of my favorite members of the Legion, next to, of course, Karate Kid. And that's because Brainiac 5, he reminds me a bit of like a Doc Brownish, like awkward person-ish kind of thing, whereas in the comics he's more of a dick and very, very arrogant. One thing I did like, though, about this season with him is that yeah, he's not really much of a fighter. He's a strategist, and he doesn't usually go into combat. Unlike the Legion animated show, he doesn't usually go into combat. But when he does fight, that like the way he was fighting some of the people who tried to bully him when he was investigating an address. That is very much Brainiac 5, where he would just kind of like anticipate what they're doing and then just kind of dodge, and he beat them with physics. Like he said, he was like, I'm going to defeat you with physics. Like he wouldn't actually say that, but that's, he would be more arrogant and be like, well, you'd be really sorry because you're just going to end up hurting yourselves. So he's a little goofier in Supergirl. And so, but I accept that because of, they do say that they can change the future. It is established now that they can change the future. So I feel like that's what's going on there, where they have a Legion that has been changed from what we know. So I can accept that in the premise of the series, so that the characters are now slightly different and everything within the course of the show itself. So, of course, there are a lot of parallels to what's going on nowadays, especially with the whole Agent Liberty storyline that's going on right now. Very, very much in tune with what's going on right now in the United States, which is a lot of fighting over immigration and people causing their own issues and blaming it on or people blaming issues on immigrants that aren't necessarily immigrants' faults. So that's something else that's going on now. So I do kind of commend how they're doing that. Z Nation, weirdly enough, is actually doing a similar underlying plot this season, where humans and there are certain zombies now that are talking, and they retain their consciousness, that they call talkers, and so one of the characters is trying to set up a new country, New America, and between talkers and humans, and there's a lot of distrust between, naturally, mostly from the human side. So yeah, they're doing that too. Something similar to that. But not quite as overt, I would say, as heavy-handed. There we go. Not quite as heavy-handed as Supergirl is doing right now. So yeah, that's Supergirl. With the Flash, it's pretty interesting having Excess, and she of course brings up the whole issue of the crisis, and how he never comes back from it. Barry never comes back from the crisis, so she grew up without a dad, and so yeah, it's actually I'm finding that a pretty interesting plot line right now. I do love the fact that the Flash is now establishing that the Legion is also part of their universe, because we've got 2 mentions of the Legion so far. In once again, you guys got to know, I love the freaking Legion of Superheroes. So anytime they're mentioned, or there's some kind of hint to them being existing, I just go nuts. So like, we already have two mentions of them, which is basically is now like more or less guaranteeing that they exist. So in the, I want to say, second episode this season, when Nora is hanging out with her daughter, or Nora's hanging out with Iris, and she goes to Jitters and gets the coffee, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I always said that Dad's symbol is cooler than Lightning Lad's," and I went nuts because Lightning Lad is one of the earliest members, or one of the most famous members of the Legion of Superheroes. And then there was another episode that was more recent, either this past episode or the one before it, when they were in Wells's secret room. And Gideon mentions that Excess actually ends up becoming a Legionnaire. But they cut her off in mid-word. But Gideon was able to get the word Legion out. And I was like, what? She's a Legionnaire! So that was pretty cool, too. Also, with this whole thing, there's if the Legion is now guaranteed, and we have Nora guaranteed as Excess, there's also a pretty good chance we're probably going to get Impulse in the future. So look out for that. I'm calling it right now. Impulse is going to make an appearance. Impulse, of course, being Barry's grandson. In the comics, he's from the 30th or 31st century, somehow. I don't remember how they explain that in the comics, but his premise is that he comes back and trains with Barry, and learns how to become a speedster from his father. Now, based on what they're doing with Nora this season, there's a very, very good possibility that we'll see Impulse sometime in the near future, especially since we have the Legion guaranteed as existing in the CW Arrowverse. FlArrowverse, because Impulse is a big fan of the Legion as well. We finally know who the Green Arrow is. The new Green Arrow is apparently Oliver's long lost half sister. So this is how she got her training. Is something to question. That's kind of interesting. If she is even going to call herself the Green Arrow. Because everybody else is calling her that, but that doesn't mean that she is necessarily using that as her name. So that's interesting now. The legends. So Constantine may possibly be the cause of this whole thing, of this whole crisis, as it were. I'm just going to use the word crisis because we have the Monitor, and it's involving multiple universes. So the only reason I suspect this is because they did say that Constantine doing what he did could have widespread ramifications, and he just did it anyway. And the legends being in between time streams have now been frozen in time, which is probably why they may not be showing up in this. It would be interesting if they did, but that's fine. That's right. I do have to mention, I do have to apologize for my reaction to the 90s Flash and Monitor ad. Because I did incorrectly call Smallville's Green Arrow Jade, and that was because my TV's a little far away, which is why I'm squinting all the time, and so I saw just something bright green near his head. And it looked different from his uniform. So I thought that was a wig. I saw his armband. I did see his armband. So there was a point where I was like, that's definitely... And because I saw the armband right there, and I was like, oh yeah, that's gotta be Smallville's Green Arrow. And I was about to say that when I saw the head, and it looked like there was a bright green wig on it. So I immediately changed my mind and went, oh, wait, no. Maybe that's Jade. I think that might be Jade. And where I was going with that was because I know that the 90s Flash and Smallville are two different universes. And in the 90s Flash didn't really have any other superheroes in it. In fact, Superman and Batman were probably comic book characters. And there's a very good reason I say this, and that's because I said this during my Lois and Clark re-reaction, which is that there's a scene in the old 90s Flash where they do a kind of wink and nod, where Jay's walking his dog, and his dog is one of those kind of goofy like 80s, 90s dogs, who's actually a little bit smarter than your average dog. So he's walking his dog past this movie theater, and and the movie theater is having a Superman Batman double feature, and it's quite clearly the '78 Christopher Reeves Superman and the Tim Burton Batman that's featuring, and the dog tries to like pull him inside. He's like, "No, don't we get enough of that at home?" Little haha, chuckle. Wink and nudge for the Flash fans out there. So as far as we know, there are no other superheroes in the 90s Flash universe. And there are supervillains. He does have his own supervillains. Like I think they had Mirror Master. I think he was probably the only one who was actually superpowered was Mirror Master. I think he was the only one who was actually superpowered. So they did have Mirror Master in 90s Flash. And so yeah, basically there weren't any other heroes. However, when I went back and looked closer at it, I saw Stargirl. I think that's her name, Stargirl, or Liberty Bell. Maybe it was Liberty Bell. I think it was Liberty Bell who we met with the Legends. It was that same Liberty Bell from the JSA's from the Legion's JSA, and she was the very first one we saw. And then I couldn't quite place a couple others. Yeah, I had trouble trying to spot some of the others because it was really dark. But the other one, that's right. We saw the Ray's helmet. We saw Hawkgirl's helmet, as somebody else pointed out. Right before you see the Green Arrow, there's Hawkgirl's helmet to the bottom right. And then of course you have Smallville's Green Arrow. So, I mean, who else is going to show up is going to be another question in its entirety, because we do know that despite the fact that the 90 series was so short, it was established that he could travel through time. So, in case you guys are wondering, yeah, he can actually. The 90s Flash can actually travel through time. One of the last episodes was a two-parter where he got stuck in the future. He accidentally got stuck in the future. So yeah, there's that. We have the Monitor. Monitor, as I said, basically says this is going to be a crisis, because that's the Monitor's storyline. Yeah. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of what I have to say here. I am very much looking forward to it. I'm going to see if I can do a reaction to all of them. Excuse me. I am going to try and see if I can do a reaction to all of them. I know for a fact I'm off tomorrow, so... but I don't get live TV here. So it'll probably be either really late or the day after that I'll be able to actually watch it. I actually don't really watch all of these on time. In fact, it's probably almost better for me to just wait for all of them to air. And no. I need to do them all. I need to do them as soon as I can. So, I mean, I'll try and see what I can do about that. It's tricky for me to do TV reactions because of the amount of time it takes for me to edit. So, yeah. So that's pretty much that for a recap, our pre-crossover recap. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Yeah, so all my geek friends out there, till next time, stay geeky. See you around.
All four of you standing there doing nothing. You look like the attractive yet non-threatening racially diverse cast of a CW show.
Oh my God, they did not! They did not just do that!
My name's Barry Allen. I'm not actually anybody's cousin. Just such good friends.
Yeah, it feels like we're family sometimes.
Oh my God!
I need a clear picture of the